Tropical Storm Gaemi forecast to become a typhoon on today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for July 20th. It does feel like a good while since we last had an active storm. That of course was Beryl, but now we're back with the Western Pacific throwing up two new tropical storms, Gamy and yet to be named 4W, at least as of the broadcast time of this bulletin. We are code orange for Tropical Storm Gamy right now, moving northwards past the Philippines. Well, it's day 50 of Atlantic hurricane season, and I can tell you that there's no areas of interest, which is more excellent news. Still a quiet basin there, with a frontal system stretching from the US East Coast way out over the North Atlantic. In the Eastern Pacific, it's day 64, and we still have these two areas of interest. Well, the first one, the one on the left, is a bit of a formality, really. It's pretty much gone. But the one on the right, we're now giving a 20% chance, uptick slightly on the models, and could develop as it moves westwards. And in the Western Pacific, we have these two tropical storms which have bumped up the numbers a little bit closer to the normal, but Tropical Storm Gamy could become a substantial typhoon as it heads towards Taiwan and the southern islands of the Ryukyus in Japan. No areas of interest in the North Indian Ocean at this time. There was a weak surface low that I believe moved inland over eastern India throughout the last 24 hours. Lots of rainfall over the area though, however. And in the southwest Indian Ocean, nothing too much going on here at all. Just a few clouds really across the Seychelles, and a bit of a bigger bank of cloud well out further over the open ocean. So the top story then, of course, is our potential typhoon developing. Gamy currently 369 kilometers from Catanduanes, the Philippines, 422 from Hainan, 622 from Manila, 882 from Ishigaki, which could be a landfall location later on in Japan, and 1053 from Taipei, the capital of Taiwan. We're not concerned about any land impacts in the next 72 hours, but that will change fairly soon. In fact, we're more concerned about the other system at the moment, 4W, which is expected to strike Hainan as a tropical storm within 72, maybe even 48 hours. Here they are, both of them visible on this satellite imagery. You can see 4W on the left hand side. It looks like that is developing slowly but surely, and of course Gamy on the right hand side. It's cloud cover not too far from affecting the Philippine Islands. Indeed, there will be some enhanced cloud cover and probably some rainfall sandwiched in between those two systems there, and there could be some substantial rainfall totals along the west coast. There's a big bulk of cloud there. The systems themselves are looking pretty decent, but still got a long way to go. You can see Gamy here with some big cloud tops blowing up in those latest frames, a big burst there just as it was getting dark. Looking at the water vapor infrared here, that bulk of cloud really blowing up in those latest frames. So it is on its way, and certainly a sign that strengthening is occurring. Obviously, sea surface temperatures underneath it are very good. Well, those cloud tops are extending very high up into the atmosphere at this point. A few areas in that cluster of minus 90 degree cloud tops there from Gamy. And this is 4W, which is slowly moving northwestwards, trying to follow its friend over there, and slowly heading towards the coast of Hainan. A lot of dry air up towards the northwest there, but the models today are suggesting that it could become a substantial storm and maybe get close to typhoon status itself as it approaches Hainan in 48 hours time. Although at the minute it's looking a little bit skeptical, it has to be said, because the eastern side of the system is looking pretty poor. Left hand side though looking better with some high cloud tops. Now this is another Invest 90 93W that was designated way out to the east near 150 degrees east. It really doesn't look like that will develop. We haven't designated it indeed, and at the moment it looks pretty appalling, it has to be said, in the wake of Gamy. Now this is the Atlantic off the east coast of the United States, a little band there extending out towards the northeast, lots of dry air. You can see those orange zones, that's the Saharan dust extending all across the western Atlantic right now and affecting the Lesser Antilles too. A few little thunderstorms there amongst all that. And across the coast of Africa, you can see a couple of tropical waves starting to appear off the coast, but I imagine they'll meet a quick demise as dry air and Saharan dust take hold. There's that East Pacific system down there, slowly moving westwards. Not too much to say about that at the moment. And far off to the left hand side of the screen there is that former area of interest 92E, looking pretty poor with no convection. There's the Western Pacific, a very broad area of cloud all extending from Gamy out eastwards, and this is the Indian region now. A lot of monsoonal showers across India and across Myanmar and extending further into the Arabian Sea in a few little sporadic bursts off the coast of Pakistan as well. Our sea surface temperature graphics are broken, so we'll stay with yesterday's picture when we did our last bulletin. It's pretty much the same, I imagine, anyway. 30 degrees plus off the coast of the Pacific coast of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico, once again, really very warm indeed, up to 32 degrees Celsius off Louisiana and Florida. Over the open Atlantic as well, it's looking good over a very wide area now. Western Pacific, similar, even warmer temperatures just off Okinawa there, pushing 32 degrees Celsius, and off the western Philippines as well, where Gamy is heading into. It's a prime area now of up to 32 degrees Celsius. North Indian Ocean looking good off the coast of northern coastal India, Odisha and West Bengal, up to 30 degrees Celsius there. And the sea surface temperature anomalies, this is up to date. The Atlantic still very much above average, although there's this tiny area southeast of Bermuda that has fallen below now, interestingly, but most of the Atlantic is still very much well above, up to 4 degrees above average. The Eastern Pacific, a few spots there, up to 3 degrees above, and in the Western Pacific it's a subtropical zone that's really warm, up to 3 or 4 degrees above average from northern Philippines through Taiwan and around the Japanese islands, pretty much exactly where Tropical Storm Gamy is going. Oceanic heat content also looking good for the storm as well. It's in a very high area right now. It will drop a little bit and then it will rise again as it closes in on the southernmost islands of the Ryukyus. The Eastern Pacific is slowly starting to catch up as well, but very slowly, it has to be said. And the Atlantic still holding on with a very large area there, a big line of very high amounts of energy extending from the Lesser Antilles through the northern Caribbean, through the islands there and into the Gulf of Mexico, looking very good indeed. GFS computer model for the next 5 days then. You can see 92E on the left hand side and this other system that may try to develop later on in the run. 20% chance GFS actually does have it forming near the end of that 5-day period. There it is, just starting to form at the end of that period. You'll see it better in day 5 to 10, but other models not so sure on that one yet. There's a lot of disturbances in general around there that are all may try to develop, but all of them look to be struggling. Now the West Pacific, watching these two storms then. 4W, there it is, nearly typhoon status possibly there, and then Gamy moving northwards, possibly under the influence of another little system there off to its east. Maybe that was 93W, and then after that it blows up into a massive typhoon, powerful typhoon as well, getting to probably category 4 status on this model run, although it has to be said, not quite as strong as earlier model runs, which were even calling for a category 5 out of this in the East China Sea, but either way it's still looking pretty bad there as we watch that loop again, and showing that it could produce some very strong winds over a wide area. Looking at rainfall expectations as well, they could get up quite high too. First of all, on Hainan we could be looking at up to 20 inches from 4W, that's 500 millimeters, and similar amounts all across the western Philippine Islands as well. Okay, maybe I overestimated Hainan there, around 14 inches, 350 millimeters, and around the Philippines up to 20 inches, 500 millimeters there along the west coast. In Manila, possibly 350 millimeters as well. East coast of China getting close to 500 millimeters, and the difference here is for Taiwan not looking at so much higher, not as high rainfall because the track forecast has deviated a bit. That could still change back though. Eastern Pacific, there's that small tropical cyclone there on the medium range from that system that we've given the 20% to. And this is why could develop into a tropical storm, quite a small one, so it could have a run for hurricane status there as well. Survives for quite a bit as it enters the Central Pacific before starting to weaken as it slowly gets towards Hawaii. Now this is that typhoon once again, Gamy, moving inland over eastern China, not far from Shanghai. They get some strong tropical storm force winds there, moving northwestwards, inland, and then northeastwards eventually. Not too far from Beijing, its remnants there, but a powerful landfall, possibly category 3 there. Certainly something to behold. A powerful, broad typhoon there that develops over those very warm sea surface temperatures. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all of our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations at any time. And are still waiting for Hone t-shirts, are still available. Most people have no idea what a Hone is anymore because we've been waiting so long. Well, in the silly range then, we're looking at the Eastern Pacific once again, and there could be another development. Yes, there it is, a substantial tropical storm becoming a hurricane there, moving northwestwards and out towards the Baja California Peninsula. And once again, a system that doesn't last that long, a few days off the coast of Mexico, but still very speculative as to whether this actually happens or not. Well, the good news is that there's nothing in the Atlantic out to 16 days, so it should be a quiet basin over there as well. Obviously still reeling after Beryl. In the Western Pacific, these two systems that could form way out over the open waters, and you can also see what was left of 92E, not 92E, but the 20% area continuing into the Western Pacific there, and then these two cyclones, one becomes a substantial typhoon, and another one becoming a tropical storm. They bounce off each other almost really, and then turn away from each other, which is a very interesting movement. I'm not sure whether that will actually happen. That is very long range though, of course. We're looking into the first week of August now, as those systems continue both becoming typhoons eventually. Completely different situation on this day, on July 20th, 2021, although similar in some ways actually. We had Typhoon Sempaka, which was making landfall as a Category 1, was rapidly weakening as it did so in southern China, and Typhoon Infa, which was starting to ramp up as a Category 2, would peak at the end of the day as a borderline Category 3 storm as it started to turn towards the Ryukyu Islands and into the East China Sea. We had Tropical Storm Felicia in the Eastern Pacific dying off, and Tropical Depression Guillermo, which was even further in its dying off phase, was about to be vanished into dust. Back to today then, the next name in the Atlantic is still Debbie. In the Eastern Pacific, it's still Bud. In the Central Pacific, it is still Hode. 26 storms so far this year, which had 25 and 26 just now forming. In the Western Pacific, the next name, if it hasn't been given out already to 4W, is Prapiroon, followed by Maria. In the North Indian Ocean, it will be Asna. And in the Southern Hemisphere, when it starts to wake up later on in the year, the next names are in the Australian region, Rob. Southwest Indian Ocean, it's Ansha. And in the South Pacific, it's Pitta. That's all from today's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.